I fell in a pond in front of everyone trying to impress my crush. This was my first year being a counselor at a kids camp and I knew my crush was going to be there, so I was excited. So on the first day there, when everybody had just got set up, me and my crush got paired up together and we were watching over and playing with the kids in the octoball pit. My younger and dumber self was elated and thought I would try to do my best in the situation that my middle school self knew how to. Eventually, me and her started to play in the games, mostly just trying to go against each other and going easier on some of the kids. I ended up getting her out. I teased her a little and went back to focusing on the game and kids. Now, if you've never played the game before, there is a pit and short walls around it. If the ball you're playing with gets hit outside of the walls, an out person can try to retrieve the ball and get back into the game. So after we were teasing each other some more, one of the kids hits the ball out of the pit and I immediately looked at her. She's in a full sprint. Luckily, she was on the other side of the wall and I was able to get in front of her and the ball was heading towards a pretty large pond. My middle school brain was too caught up in the moment, and when I went to reach for the ball, I slipped on the mud and fell completely in the pond, in front of all the kids I was supposed to be watching. But not only them, but because the pond is in the middle of the entire camp, everybody heard and saw me. So much shame. At least my crush laughed. Even if it was more at me than with me.
I was outside playing my laptop. It was about 8 p.m. and my friend was also over. We were playing Assassin's Creed on my laptop. It was getting dark, so my friend told me that he would start to head home. We started to pack our stuff up and take it to my room when we heard sudden movements in the yard. I have a medium-sized garden, and about 2/3 of it is taken by flowers and bushes because my mother really loves plants. We didn't think anything of the sounds, since our neighbor has a cat and it often hangs out in our yard, but then again, the bushes started shaking. A lot of bushes at that territory, so it was almost impossible to see what was on the other side. Yet, again, we just ignored it and took my stuff into my room. When leaving, he wanted some water, so we went downstairs and suddenly a big bang noise came out of the yard, as if something had dropped on the wooden planks. They had fallen over. We go out and we see a dead bird laying on the planks. It had his neck cut, as if someone intentionally cut it with a knife or some type of sharp object. We started to think there was no cat in our yard, and it was something bigger and more horrible. My friend had his phone screen open, and we were using it as light source. It was almost dead, and we couldn't turn on the flashlight. I quickly ran inside and took a flashlight my dad often used to go hunting. We started scouting the area. For about 10 minutes we didn't find anything. While searching, my friend started to shake me. When I looked at him, his eyes were wide, and he was pointing at something. We slowly went there and scouted the area. We didn't find the creature itself, but instead, we found a knife covered in blood. Sure enough, by looking at cuts, we figured out it was the same knife used to cut that bird's neck. My friend wanted to take it, but I told him it could be a crime weapon, and we needed to take it to the police. I found a plastic bag and my mom's gloves and carefully put the knife in the bag. We then took it upstairs and put it in my drawer. We went down again and started to scout the area. I suddenly heard a loud noise from upstairs. It was like a door smashing against the wall in a high speed. Without a second thought, I ran inside, took my dad's hunting rifle, and gave my friend a long knife. We ran upstairs. The door of my room was open. We ran inside and found nothing until my friend called me over. The drawer was open, and even worse, the knife inside it was gone. My friend was hesitant at first. I was too. What if he just charged us and killed the both of us like that bird? I had some equipment, like helmets and stuff. We put some on and went into different rooms. I went into the living room. Nothing. My friend went to the kitchen. Nothing. I went into my mom and dad's bedroom. Nothing. I was about to give up when my friend suddenly yelled. I quickly ran over. He was in the bathroom. I could see the fear in his eyes. I went inside the bathroom, and it looked like something covered in fur was in there. I noticed the bathroom window was open. I looked outside and saw 2 police cars parked with their sirens on. They were inside my yard. I ran down without any equipment so I didn't seem like a burglar. I then explained everything. I thought they would just laugh and tell me I was some kind of schizophrenic, but no. They stood there and noted everything and Grant into his car. And after a few minutes, 2 more black cars arrived. They didn't have sirens or any marks, but they said they were from some kind of foundation. I knew something was up, so I instructed with my hands for my friend to go and hide. They made me repeat every single detail again. After that, my friend told me that they injected me with some kind of syringe. I dropped to the ground, and they took me up to my bed in my house. At that time, those cars were already gone. My friend Aslo said they were mumbling about some kind of SCP when taking me to my bed. He told me about all of this. since I didn't remember anything after that syringe shot. He told me while they shot me with the syringe, there was movement of someone in a black suit and not some kind of monster. He said he believed that was the person responsible for the dead bird and all the other weird things we experienced. After this much time, we still haven't found out who that person or creature was. We just hope we never have to deal with anything like that again. I was heading to a spot to buy some shirts for really cheap to upgrade my wardrobe and drove out like 30 minutes to get them. When I get there, it's already dark out, and the driveway of the house is on the highway. It's a pretty big house with a huge parking space that you have to drive into, and it's covered by trees, making it really dark and hard to see anything. I think to myself, okay, a car could technically block me if I wanted to leave. So I was already kind of paranoid and worried, but the dude seemed okay on Facebook Marketplace, so I parked in the dark and walk up to the doorway with cash in hand for the shirts. We fine, right? Well, an Asian lady in her 30s came to me in a maid outfit and tons of makeup, opens the door and signals me to come in. McShirts? And she seemed like she didn't understand, but kept signaling me to come in, and it was pretty dumb of me to go in anyways, but I figured if I stay beside the door I could run out if anything happened. And maybe she was offering for me to try on the shirts. As I look inside and walk in, the light inside the house is red, like a seductive sort of red color, and there's some dudes talking in another room blocked by a curtain. The lady starts to tug at my hand to lead me upstairs and is getting really close, and she's smiling a lot, and I'm so fucking confused. Oh, I say, you're selling shirts here, right? And then she scratches her head and brings out her phone with Google Translate and asks me to type it, so I type shirts with a question mark. And then she says something in Korean, I think, and it translates back. It literally says I can wear a t-shirt if you want, baby. Now I'm like, oh shit. I might have just walked into an escort ring, and I'm getting really sketched out. I'm just sussed out in general. The dude on Facebook isn't messaging me back and I'm talking to an escort. Is this a setup or a YouTube video or some shit? I'm fucking shook. So I show her the messages for the shirts, and after some back and forth where she takes pictures and translates them, she eventually realizes that I'm not her client and gets so embarrassed and opens the door for me to head back out, laugh out loud. Mind you, the person I was supposed to get my shirts from still didn't answer yet. I'm sketched out, so I drive away, but 5 minutes later, he messaged me apologizing and saying that he was taking a shower and mentioned that he's at the place now so I can pick up the shirts. Once again, my dumbass thinks, fuck it, let me drive back because those shirts were really a sweet deal that was hard to pass up. So I drive back, and right beside the house outside the driveway, I see a cop car stopping a driver. It might have been someone speeding on the highway, but it was such a weird coincidence. Against my better judgment, I go back into the driveway. The guy messages me back, opens the driveway, pulls out some cool shirts, and sells me them for really cheap. He apologizes for the delay and asks me to share the deal with my friends if they want shirts for cheap. We laugh about the situation, and I head back home. This was a night to remember. Why I never eat pizza crusts. Whenever I eat pizza, I never eat the crusts. Sometimes someone I'm eating it with will ask me why. I always answer by saying I just don't like them or something along those lines. That's a lie that I tell because I don't want to tell this story every time someone asks. The truth is, I don't mind the taste of pizza crusts. They're actually quite good. I still hate eating them. I had a dog named Carter once. There were a couple other dogs in my house, but he was my favorite and I was his. He'd always sit with me on the couch instead of anyone else, and he'd always be the first one to greet me when I got home, and he was just as special to me. I ate pizza a lot as a kid. Frozen pizzas were an easy meal for me, and I liked them, so they were one of my most common meal choices. I wasn't a fan of eating pizza crusts at the time. The ones on the frozen pizzas I liked were always too crunchy for me, so I fed them to Carter. He always seemed delighted to eat them. Whenever I put a pizza in the oven, he knew he was going to have his favorite snack soon. Over the years, I ate pizza many times. Every time, I'd share my pizza crusts with Carter. It became our little tradition, and I got used to that. Whenever I ate pizza, the crusts weren't mine to eat. They were his. One Friday afternoon, I was still at school. It was around lunchtime when I got a call. It was from my mom. She called to tell me that Carter was going to die today, and didn't believe it. There were no signs of illness or anything, so it didn't make sense. I wanted her to ask the vet to wait until I got home to euthanize him, and I said no. I didn't want to watch my best buddy die. I cried my heart out in a corner after I got off the phone. Someone asked me what was wrong, and I replied by saying my home isn't going to be as lively as it used to be anymore. After crying, I called my mom. I asked her if Carter was still alive, and she said the vet was running late, so he wasn't dead yet. I asked her if she could ask the vet to wait until I got home to do it, so I could be with Carter in his final moments. She said, of course. I got home and she was holding him. He was bobbing his head up and down because he was really high on painkillers. I made the morbid joke that he was headbanging to some sick music. An attempt to make light of the grim situation. I held him in my arms. His fur was falling out and it caused me to get rashes on my arms because I'm allergic to his fur, but I didn't care. I just wanted to hold him. It started to feel like my arms were boiling, but that pain was nothing compared to the pain of letting go, so I held on for as long as I could get away with. The vet arrived, and I handed Carter back to my mom. His time was up. The Grim Reaper was here. The vet gave Carter a shot to put him to sleep, waited some time, then gave him one more shot to make sure he never woke up. He left us with the corpse for a bit to let us mourn, then came back later to take his limp body away for cremation. After his death, I never stopped eating pizzas. I never eat the crusts either though, regardless of how good they may be. If I force myself, I could eat 1 or 2, maybe 3 on a good day, but it feels wrong. It always feels wrong because whenever I eat pizza, the crusts aren't mine to eat, they're his. His last ride. There was an old man who lived behind me with his wife. Ancient would be more accurate for his age. He was a War II vet. He told me stories when I mowed his lawn, back before dementia took over his mind. On weekends when mowing his lawn, he'd stand on his porch and watch me. Other times he'd holler at me because of the noise, or because he thought I was stealing something from him. His wife would collect him up and shuffle him back into the house. She'd then come back out and apologize, and I'd always tell her it wasn't a problem, and there was no need to apologize. I understood because me and my family has also dealt with that most evil of times. The time between slowly losing all your memories and the time you breathe your last breaths. 3 weeks ago, I bought a new truck. It is a nice full-sized 4x4, club cab, V8, 2-foot lift, blacker than my ex-wife's heart, and as pretty as a sleeping kitten. It wasn't brand new, but close enough for jazz. It was in fine shape with less than 20,000 miles, and not a scratch on it. That Saturday I was putting a new coat of wax on it. The phrase wax on, wax off from the Karate Kid movie kept running through my head as I worked. Johnny Cash was coming from the speakers in the truck. The old man startled me when I heard him say nice truck boy. No one has called me boy in 60s years, and I hadn't heard him shuffle up behind me because he was wearing socks without shoes, a pair of pants belted halfway up his chest, and a partially tucked-in button-down shirt. His ice blue eyes, I knew from experience, could be seeing anything, from what was in front of him, to some memory or horror of many years in his past. Thanks, Marine, I said to him. He had a real name, but I never remembered it. I had always called him Marine out of respect for his service during the Second World War. He walked around the truck looking, but not touching. I looked back at his house hoping to see his wife coming to corral him up. At any point the man could suffer a dementia episode, and I didn't want him damaging my new truck and really didn't want to try to restrain him without hurting him. Marine was telling me about a truck he'd owned at some point in his life, while I put my cleaning tools back in the garage. It was a 1952 Ford he remembered having. He recalled the day he drove it to pick up his now wife, driving it to his wedding, and the day he wrecked it in a snowstorm. The memories were perfectly clear to him. In those moments, I glanced over hoping to see his wife, but she still hadn't appeared. I'll give you $2 if you take me for a ride. Huh? I stammered. You really want a ride? Damn it, Kyle. I gave you that fucking house. Take me for a ride and I'll give you $2. My name isn't Kyle, and he didn't give me my house. I bought it from a realtor 4 years ago after my wife left me. What about your wife? Won't she wonder where you're at? I asked. That damn woman always knows where I'm at. I told her I was coming to look at your truck. Now take me for a ride. What the hell? I said to myself. A few weeks back he threatened me with a broom. I've heard him call me dunderhead, fribble, ninnyhammer, and or a scoundrel. 2 of them I had to look up. I didn't know why, and didn't think it'd be too bad to take him around the block. We'd be back in 2 minutes and maybe he'd go home. He needed help getting into the passenger seat. He grumbled about the seatbelt, but I told him I'd take him for a ride but wasn't getting a ticket for him. I drove sedately because I didn't want to frighten him or give him a heart attack. Come on, boy, let's get this bitch dirty, he said as I made the 3rd right turn and was ready to take him back home. For the 2nd time in 10 minutes I asked myself, what the hell? Okay, Marine, but don't you fricking die on me. I took him a mile out of town to the 2 tracks one of my sons told me about. He opened up the Vate and all 4 tires threw dirt. The old man laughed and grabbed the handhold over the door with both hands. That's better, Kyle, he said, as we bounced along the trail. I didn't care if he knew my name. In those few moments I was Kyle. I drove through mud, splashed water higher than the truck, in potholes like I was 18 years old, and trying to impress a date, and gunned the engine like the truck wasn't mine. The old man laughed and coughed and dribbled spittle, but he was having a good time. The Marine was breathing heavily, but he was smiling a toothless grin. I guess he forgot to put in his dentures. I drove him back home, helped him out of the truck and let him hold onto my arm as he toddled back up the walk to his house. I had to walk slow because the man had worn himself out. His wife met us at the door. Her face was covered in scorn. Maureen waved her off. "Just stop it, woman. Kyle just took me for a ride in his new truck. Give him $2. He then took her hand as she helped him up the steps. She looked at me and said, "Thank you, Kyle," using Maureen's name for me instead of my real name, which she knew. I drove my truck back to my place to wash and wax it again. It had been fun driving the old Marine down the 2 tracks, and the truck handled perfectly. It was worth it, even though I didn't get my $2. The old Marine died last night in his sleep. I heard the ambulance early this morning, but didn't know it was him. His wife came over around 8 o'clock to tell me. She said he talked about Kyle's truck the rest of the night that Saturday, and she was happy he had a good time. His funeral is this Saturday, and Sarah asked if I'd carry his casket in the back of my truck. I think the Marine would like that.